Well, let's see. Is Facebook Live starting? If so, hello. It's the Epic Beard and me, Dave. Here to talk about, the month of May. Springtime's bloom, the beginning or the middle of the season, on our way to summer. And that would be the third season and bring us into around about the third of the year. But May is special to me in a way. I don't know how many of you know, I am a very big fan of motorsports, especially the two-wheeled variety. May is interesting because as we enter the month of May, we will have some stock car races. Speedway has begun and is in full bloom, not only in the United States but in England and Europe. The World Grand Prix for the World Individual title will be beginning this month, which is a series of races to determine who the world's champion speedway rider is. It used to be a one-time event. You qualified for it, and then when you got to the final, basically all the points you'd earned had been thrown out. You had to start over, and you either won or you didn't. And but now they do it in a series of 6 or 7 races or more, and they bounce all over the world. They go from Australia to Czechoslovakia to Sweden, Denmark, Finland, England, and Germany, and a couple other countries. Fortunately, they don't come here. We'll have we have major events, racing events coming up, especially at the end of the month. Like I said, we will have a couple of NASCAR races, and there's a big one over Memorial Weekend, and then there is open wheel. Well, of course, sprint car and everything else has started, but there's open wheel, and this is the month of May for open wheel. People are now in Speedway, Indiana, which is right next to Indianapolis, at the world's greatest motor racing venue, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And they are now, as we speak, weather permitting, the people are climbing into cars, they're prepping cars, they're driving them around, and they're shaking them out, and they're testing them, and they're looking for different things. They're trying all sorts of things, and they're working their way toward the middle of the month or so, when they will have pole day and then carburetor day and carburation day, and which is kind of an oxymoron because they don't use carburetors anymore. But this is all setups, preps, and tuning, and plus first timers or rookies are going to get their piece of tape for the rear fin for the rookie position. Once you pass the rookie test, you are eligible to qualify. Doesn't mean because you pass the rookie thing doesn't mean you're going to be in the show. It just means that you can now attempt to qualify and put your car on the grid. This is big. I mean, back when we actually had Speed Channel, before Fox or somebody bought it, and it became the NASCAR channel, and then it just sort of disappeared. You used to watch a lot of different racing, and during the month of May, they would do little documentaries, and then they would visit the track daily. They would show some of the past races or bits and pieces of races and put together little things on that. But you would learn the history of things and why these days are so important, why it's set up the way it is, and the history of it. I learned an interesting fact, which is so obscure. People used to talk about the magic. Well, they still do. They talk about the magic of Indianapolis and everything about it, you know, and its wonderfulness. And there was always this thing about, like, when on the final lap, well, it's not the final lap, the final starting lap or prep lap, as they came out of turn 4, it seemed, and they were ready to pick up the green flag. They knew they were going to pick up the green flag. That all of a sudden it seemed like there were stars and sparkles in the air, and it was the magic of the start of the Indianapolis 500. And what it turned out to be was, back in those days, they had two drivers. They had a driver and a mechanic on board, and as they were coming out of turn 4, they were throwing their whiskey bottles over the turn 4 fence to get them out of the car. They had fortified themselves for 500 miles at maximum speed in cars that I believe some of them still had wooden rims. So yeah, I guess all this talk about the magic of what people saw then, and they were documented. When you went out to the track and walked around that section, it was just littered with whiskey bottles in various states of disrepair. And you know, it's kind of a magic that goes on. But Indianapolis will come at the end of the month, and it is one of the biggest events, not just here in this country, but in the world. Drivers will that compete. Some are NASCAR drivers, and they're in it because it's the Indianapolis 500. And then they will jump in a helicopter, and then they will fly to another state and climb in a NASCAR and drive another 600 miles at ultimate speeds on a banked oval to try, and it's a thing. It's like it's kind of like a hat trick or whatever, you know. Can you win the 500, both 500s, or the 600 and 500, or can you? I mean, it's an endurance thing. NASCAR and others were concerned about that, where these people be in good enough shape to, after driving the rigors of the 500 miles of Indianapolis, be able to climb into a car and safely navigate around the next oval. And there's 2 or 3 guys or people that'll try that. You know, God bless them. You know, they love to race, and they also want to be that first person or that one person that won both of those major events on the same day, which is kind of one of the biggest ones. Another big one that I don't know much about its history, but has always been a race that has really attracted me, is the Grand Prix of Monaco. And you know, Monaco is this little principality on the Mediterranean, and it's not France, and it's not like Italy. It's its own country, you might say. It is its own country. It has a prince and whatever, and it's a principality is, I think, the proper name for it. And every year for God knows how long, they've been driving through the streets of Monaco. It is the world's most famous street race. And it is a major endurance event for drivers, even to this day, with all the advances in the technology and the high-tech aspects of a modern Formula One car. They still, like, guys blister even with gloves on, they blister their hands from the turns and from the working and the controlling and driving on that surface. That surface is really, really awful, to put in a word. You know, it's like, I guess it's like driving in the city of Fullerton. It's got its potholes and its problems, but Monaco actually takes care of a lot of that. And but with daily driving in trucks and whatnot on the surface, on what will be a designated race course in a few weeks, pays its toll. Roads wear, and depending on the vehicles that are on it, that's why truckers pay a lot of taxes, is because they have a tendency to be a little bit harder on the roads than me and my motorcycle or my car or whatnot. You know, even my pickup truck. You know, 18-wheeler fully loaded is tons of material, and it really has an effect on the road surface. And but that's, what do? Do you say, oh no more, because it's like not a pristine perfect racetrack without runoff, without with way too tight of corners and very limited passing space. But no, it's like, the world and the fans just are drawn to the magnificence of Monaco. But then there's another world that I would like, because there'll be MotoGPs and there'll be World Superbike and there will be vast motorcycle racing. But at the top of, to me, it's a pyramid, like if you race a motorcycle, and depending on which discipline, flat track or speedway or whatever, you can end up in Europe and going for the world individual. If you race a sport bike, you can go into World Superbike, or the pinnacle or the point of the pyramid, MotoGP, which is the top of the pile, for me. And it, like if you're open wheeled or you just like going fast, you can do 24 hours of Le Mans. You can do Indianapolis. You can get into NASCAR, or you can go to Formula One. Again, comes to the peak of the open-wheeled world. It's the highest tech. It is the most advanced out there. The rules are way different, and it's just there's some blinding speed for cars on a road course. Of course, open wheel here does a percentage of road courses, and yet we are the kings of oval. Okay, so because we have sprint car, which is open wheel, and it's on a dirt track oval, and back east, a lot of it's paved. But I digress, because what I'm getting at is these are brave people that do this. But standing alone at the top of the motorcycle pyramid, it stands all alone, are the ones I like to call the real men of motorsport. And this will be happening in the last week or so of May. It rolls into June, and because it runs a fortnight. And this race, and it is just a race, really, is to find out who the king of the mountain is. That game we used to play as a kid. Well, they are actually on a mountain, and they go into an island out in the Irish Sea between England and Ireland, and it's a remote place called the Isle of Man. And as Jackie Stewart said, that is man's country. And what they do is in a race that's actually a timed event, because it's called a TT. They race about a 39, just under a 39-mile lap around the Isle of Man, and in the senior event, they run 6 of those. And in the other events, they can run 4 or 5 or 3. They even have an electric class, which the first year was 1 lap around it. How fast can you go in 1 lap? And now it's up to 2, because the technology is growing and improving. And this is a good place to test that technology. Give the endurance and the length, or the extension of distance, or whatever it is. God, I can't remember. I'm lost for a word. Range. Extend its range to where it can now run around 2 laps at maximum power. And matter of fact, we have a new form of racing in open wheel. It's the Formula E, which is electric open wheel, like Formula One cars, but they're all electric, and they're interesting because I think it's a time event, and it's halfway through they pull their cars in and they change to another car for full charge, and which I guess that's good, because they're showing the performance of an electric vehicle, but they're also showing off the lack of range. And when a car like that can compete in the whole race on one car, then we can start to talk. And when you can enter an electric car in Monaco or the Indianapolis 500, and you can provide it a full charge when it comes in to change tires at Indy, or it has the range to go the 100 and some miles of a Formula One race, and only pull in to change the tires, which is what they do now. Then we really can start to have a discussion on the viability of electric cars. Though I don't think the technology is as clean as people purport, nor is the cost really affordable for the average guy, in Europe or in America or anywhere in the world. Electric cars are expensive. They're very, very expensive, and I think they're very dirty because, after I think it leaves a bigger carbon footprint in the manufacturing of it and the mining of the cobalt and everything else that goes into building the car, and the waste products that are thrown out from the manufacturing of the batteries and whatnot. And then you get to the end, and it's got a battery life of 5 years, and you almost basically scrap the car out. And in order to recharge it, I believe it was, oh God, now I can't remember his name. He said that, this singer said that electricity comes from other planets. Well, it doesn't. It comes from coal, or natural gas, or nuclear, or hydroelectric, or oil fire generated. It's all basically still steam that does it all. You got a nuclear reactor that's a giant tea kettle. That, to come to your home, you need to put into your car to get to work tomorrow. And I don't think that's very environmentally green, do you? I mean, you're putting tons of carbon or whatever into the atmosphere, so you can run around with a little sticker that says, I'm environmentally friendly, but you're really not. You're really not. And of course, after the great expense of the car, we look at the cost of electrical power to your home to get that. Do you need special adapters? Do you need a 220 or a 440? Or do you need any dues on the 110 or the 120 that's normal household current? It's just I don't know. I think it's just a con. But anyways, the Isle of Man, racing's longest, one of motorcycle racing's longest and oldest events, and the most dangerous. I recommend anyone that wants to check it out is to look at the Isle of Man TT videos. I post some all the time. Regularly, I'm posting a lot right now because of the Isle, and the TT is coming up. It's on my bucket list to go and attend. Then there is British road or Irish road racing, the Ulster Grand Prix, the race at Armagh, and other little cities where they go to these little villages in Ireland, and they basically shut down a section of road or roads, and make a course, and then these guys go out and they wrap a few pads around trees and ancient stone walls, and they're very narrow roads, and they're very primitive roads. The suspension just does its job, man. I mean, from what I've seen from some of those videos, the roads are not really cool, but these guys go out there and honk on it, man. And they go out and do it, and they win and they lose, and it just goes on. But the Isle of Man TT, that's the one for me. That is probably, I think, that is, well, actually, I'm not going to say probably, I'm going to say I believe, is the greatest race, motorized competition on this planet. And I think, it'd be interesting to check it out. Like I said, back when we had the Speed Channel, we got to see people race on the road and race the TT, and they would do interviews, and they would go through the 2 weeks or the fortnight or whatever, 2-3 weeks. And hard part was understanding these people, because they speak a very, very ancient language. It's called English and Scottish and Irish, and English and Irish accents and Scottish accents and English accents. And so it's very, 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 very difficult to comprehend or understand what they're talking about. You know, they're just so foreign. And that's a joke, people. You can make out some of it, but it's interesting to listen to. It really is. These guys are getting so excited and they're so turned on by what they're doing. And anyways, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about May. The May is the fastest month to me. Racing is coming up. See, it paused my video, and you guys heard it. Oh, hello, Barbara. How are you? It's good to know finally someone's on there that can see this. But yeah, the month of May to me is a fast month. I'm a car guy, I guess, and a motorcycle guy. I like the antiques. I like the vintage. The Survivors, especially the Survivors, all original. And but I also like hot rods, and I like tricked out cars and tricked out bikes, and as well, you know. And some of these people that are building bikes, they're taking existing motorcycles that are probably cost more to bring back to original or restore, and they're just like gutting them and turning them into cafe racers or trackers or scramblers or whatever, and they're really artistic. If you don't believe me, look up the Guggenheim and their best, most profitable, and yet longest running show. They did a few years back in the 90s, called Art of the Motorcycle. And the good example was, at the time, the hottest bike out there that people were really loving and was the most beautiful motorcycle I'd ever seen was the return of MV Agusta and the Del Ordo. And the Del Ordo, which was the gold bike, the handmade. They made 40 of them or something like that, or 100 of them, and they were handmade, and they were about 40 grand a piece. But I've seen them as high as 150,000, brand new. People put in their shop, or like one guy from back east was at Laguna Seca when I was up there one year, and he wanted 98,000. He bought it, he bid on it from MV. They shipped it to him. He pretty much kept it together the way it is. He pushed it around. I don't think he rode it very much or started it very often. But he brought it with him to Laguna for their tent and for their part of their business. You know, but they made aftermarket parts, and he was trying to sell it. And he wanted $98,000 for it. A couple of Formula One drivers have them. And they're very, 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 very expensive. They're beautiful, beautiful motorcycles. But on the opening display, as you walked in on a round mirrored table, you know, that exhibits cars and bikes, it sat with a 1904 or 1902 Indian. It was like the first Indian, and it was original. It was a Survivor, and it was sitting next to it. And to be honest, in the picture, I was struck and thought, which is really the most attractive and the most beautiful work on that stand? And I'm going to have to go with the Indian, you know. Crazy little, 235 four-stroke, made about, 15 horsepower or something like that? 10, 15 horsepower or 8 horsepower? It didn't go very fast. It had this weird tank that sat on the back fender, and it was just a neat bike. It was basically, and it was a bicycle with an engine. It had pedals to help get it going and get it started and get it going down the road. And it's the oldest motorcycle. It was the oldest motorcycle company in the United States. and there were hundreds. Believe it or not, there were hundreds. And the show traveled. It went to Las Vegas and a few other cities, and I mean, people that didn't want to go to New York or couldn't afford to go to New York because it became to a local city, like especially for us here in Southern California, Las Vegas. It's a few hour drive, and you go and see it. And a friend of mine went and saw it, and he said it was just amazing, the number of bikes they had, the various companies. They had a British section, they had an American section, they had an Italian section, they had a German section, they had bikes from back in the turn of the century, to the turn of the 20th century, up to the nearing of the end of the 20th century, and it was just awesome. It was I don't know what to say. So, anyways, if you get a chance and you're watching your sports page, or you know somebody involved in that, or you can watch something on cable or satellite or whatever, keep an eye out for the Isle of Man. It is the number one race, but also remember we have the two other biggest races happening this month. We have Indianapolis and Monaco, and it's just that's why I call this the fastest month. We have the big guns coming out, and to long seasons that will end in September and in October, and if you're into it, if you like the cars, you like the technology, you like the thrill and the speed, watch. As far as Isle of Man goes, I mean, yeah, they're the state-of-the-art motorcycles that people build in their garages, and many people build in their garages and whatever. But there's factory representatives from MV and from Norton and from Triumph, the Japanese, Ducati, and BMW, I believe, is there, trying to be the king of the mountain, to be the man, and put the fastest lap. It's you don't really let me explain something. The Isle of Man, you don't get out there with like a dozen guys or more and try to go around that lap for X amount of laps. You're giving 6 laps, 2 pit stops, because each lap is near 39 miles, and where you can change tires and top off your gas tank. You are started every 10 seconds apart. Each rider is started about that, with that space, and basically you're not racing. You're sort of racing the guy in front of you and behind you, but you're also racing the guy behind you, and because you're racing the clock, and you want to do those as fast as you can and get around that island as quickly as you can without an incident. And like I said, yeah, watch the videos. I mean, and yet the video cannot explain. It can only approximate what is happening. To me, it's like so many other. You can enjoy a great barbecue, but you really need to taste it. And with the Isle of Man, you need to hear it, you need to feel it, you need to stand on the sidewalk or behind a little brick wall or iron rod fence and a few feet from the racing surface. And these guys go blowing by at points of near 200 miles an hour. And it takes some cojones, man. So I'm going to say goodbye to Barbara. I don't know if she's still there, but so far she's the only one that viewed this. And I'm going to stop there and say thank you. I hope any who view this enjoy it. Feel free to comment either about the subject or tell the Epic Beard what you think, and let me know what you think. And because quite frankly, at this point of this beard, yeah, we're two different individuals. You know, there's me and, well, the Epic Beard. So hey, goodbye, good luck, love you all. Enjoy your Wednesday. Okay.